Coming up, live from New York City, one of the most prestigious road races in the world. Featuring some of the fiercest and fastest athletes on the planet. Including a couple of three-time champions looking for more hardware, and two all-time greats racing head-to-head, while 25,000 more run through this vibrant city. The 2023 United Airlines NYC Half is next. Good Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Ryan Field, thrilled to be back here this year to bring you coverage of the United Airlines NYC Half, and what an incredibly deep professional field we have for you getting ready to race this morning. Starting with two of the best distance runners on the planet. Joshua Cheptegei of Uganda has won 2 Olympic medals, including gold in the 5,000 meters at the Tokyo Games. His fellow countryman, Jacob Kiplimo, just 22 years old, he is the world record holder for the half marathon. Over on the women's side, Molly Huddle, the American who's won this race 3 straight times from 2015 to 2017. She is back for the first time after having her first child in April. But the defending champ is Simberi Teferi of Ethiopia, the 2-time world champ, silver medalist, set the NYC half event record just last year. In the women's wheelchair event, American Susanna Scaroni, the reigning New York City Marathon champ, is back after missing last year's NYC half due to a bout of COVID. She'll be challenged by Switzerland's Manuela Schär. She has won this race 3 times, including last year. The men's wheelers, they are led by 24-year-old Daniel Romanchuk. There he is, the 2-time defending champion. He is here. So yes, it should be a phenomenal day of racing through the streets of New York. And here to help me call all the scintillating action, my colleagues, Olympian Kerry Tullison and Chris Chavez. They're both here. Glad to have you both here with us this morning. And we're going to put you guys right to work because the men's wheelchair race just got underway. And we take a look at the fellas out on the course as they get ready to get started. And Chris, who are you expecting to do big things here today?
Yeah, so the all eyes are on the defending champion, Daniel Romanchuk. He was planning to run all of the Abbott World Marathon Majors this year, but he had to withdraw from the Tokyo Marathon earlier this month due to a minor injury. Didn't take a break much from training, so he's here today. When he last raced in New York, he was 3rd at the New York City Marathon. But if there's a chance to upset Romanchuk, it's the Dutchman Jetse Plaat, who is the one who can capitalize upon that moment. He was 2nd at the New York City Marathon back in October. Phenomenal athlete as a Paralympic and world champion with some world-class performances in the triathlon as well, so keep your eyes on him.
One of the many great matchups we're keeping an eye on here this morning. Now look at the women's wheelers. Kerry, who are you keeping an eye on here this morning?
Well, everybody that saw her win here last fall, we got to talk about our defending champion from the New York City Marathon. That's Susanna Scaroni. She's had a phenomenal year racing, but Manuela Schär, she's raced here 3 times and won here 3 times. So she's going for her 4th win. And also Catherine De Bruno, she is a debutante. She's never raced here in New York. She's never raced 13.1 miles. So you got to give a nod to her as well.
The professional women's race is slated to begin here in just a couple of minutes. Molly Huddle, she is back as a 3-time champion and a new mom. Our Sam Ryan caught up with her a short time ago.
Here with a familiar face, a 3-time champ here in Molly Huddle. Your first time back here in New York City, though, since giving birth to your daughter last April. How has your pre-race routine and the training changed since then?
It's definitely a little different. My training, I'm still a little bit lower volume, kind of coming back from the maternity leave and the whole process. I have to make time for things like pumping now, and I'm just doing a little less recovery, just being a parent, but it's more fulfilling. So yeah, we're fitting it all together.
A strong finish in Houston, obviously, in January. So that was 2 months ago. How have you progressed since then, and what are your expectations today?
You know, this is a much more difficult course. I'm just going to try and mix it in and focus on racing and not worry too much about time because it's a little bit more technical. And this will be a good fitness check for me going into a marathon season. So.
No real expectations, but this is your first time running this course. You ran it 3 times, but they changed the course since then. So what do you expect from this course, though?
Yeah, it looks more challenging. It's a different wind direction. We're going a different direction. There's some hills at the end and in the beginning. So, I'm doing it's like a new race to me. So I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on some of the more veteran women who have run this race on this course and just stick my nose in it and hopefully, it suits my style of running.
Thank you so much. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to see Molly Huddle back here today, getting ready to take to the course. Out on the course right now, the professional women and men's wheelchair racers. And Carrie, looks like a tight start to this one.
Well, you know, when you start on the hills that we have here in the very early stages of the race, it's no surprise to see the women out there together pushing. But yet on the right, we see Daniel Romanchuk all alone, and he likes to get out hard and go for it too. So yeah, I like seeing that the women are together. They're pushing each other, working through these early stages of the race together.
Yeah, so there may have been a little bit of concern over any sort of injury for Daniel Romanchuk. He's getting out there right away, building a lead and hoping to hold on. I mean, he's showing no signs of letting up right now.
One of the big storylines this morning, guys, of course, the weather. 30 degrees at the start line, and obviously that's going to affect here the wheelchair racers perhaps a little more than anyone else, but it looks like they are off and running. We are here at the United Airlines NYC Half, a live look at the men's and women's wheelchair racers. They are underway. We are ticking ever closer to the start of the professional women's race. Carrie Tullefson, she is here, a 2004 Olympian, alongside Chris Chavez, an expert on all things distance running, ready to call the action with me. We're excited about that. But first, let's check in with Sam Ryan. She is at the start line over in Brooklyn.
Yeah, guys, a lot of talent on the women's side. The defending champ, Sambari Teferi, she is back here looking to defend her title. Conditions a little different this year, though. The wind could be a factor. Helen Uberi, she is a two-time silver medalist in the Olympics, making her New York City half debut. And it's Molly Huddle, three-time champion, making her first appearance in New York City since giving birth to her daughter last April. Should be a fun one. Let's send it back to you guys.
And we're going to check in with Brittany Bell now, live in Times Square. Hi, Brittany.
Yeah, Ryan, right now it is cold, so the wind is going to be a big factor for the runners. But right now we are in Times Square. The lights are really brightening things up right at the start and the finish of the kids' run. So this is a pretty big deal because Times Square only closes to traffic 2 times of the year. One is New Year's Eve, and the second time is today. So we're just really excited to see some of these runners coming by and the kids. So for the kids' race, we're going to see about 1,000 local kids running through here, and they're going to run 1,500 meters. And this is a part of the New York Road Runners, the Rising New York Road Runners program. It is a free year-round program, just encouraging kids to get active, and this is one of their main events. Looking forward to seeing them come out here, and we're going to definitely see those runners in layers because we have current temperatures down into the 30s, but it feels more like the 20s. Those gusts up to 30 miles per hour can really slow things down. Brian?
All right, Brittany, thanks. We'll be checking back in with you later this morning. But there is Molly Huddle, the 3-time champ, as the professional women are ready to get started here today, Carrie.
Yeah, they're staying loose. You know, it is chilly. You can see a lot of hats and gloves, arm warmers on these ladies. And this is always that scary point of the race. Like, the gun is up, right? They're getting ready. I love racing, but I don't miss this moment right here. It's so much more fun once that gun goes off.
I think one of the most fun parts to a race like this is when it's this cold is just the outfit choices that come out. It's just like who's wearing arm sleeves, who's wearing gloves, and when the gloves come off during the race, that's when it actually really begins.
Just 30 degrees at the start line in Brooklyn. Not exactly ideal racing conditions, but here we are for yet another incredible running of the United Airlines NYC Half as the women get set to take their mark. And what's going through your mind here, Carrie, as the gun goes?
Well, you know, I think getting into race mode here, right? I mean, they are obviously going through their visualization. They're thinking about their strategies, but also just getting in and starting to attack the hills early on.
And right up in the front, right there, you see Helen O'Beary doing a little bit of the early work. But I spoke to her coach, and we'll have a little bit more insight on her training. But she comes in as one of the favorites. But I hope that she's not going to be up in the front, really, because it does take a lot to be the one up in the front with the wind.
The 13.1-mile journey is underway. To follow your favorite runners while they're out on the course, download the United Airlines NYC Half app. It's powered by Tata Consultancy Services. It's available free of charge on iOS and Android. The app features on-map runner tracking, pro athlete bios, and a whole lot more.
Well, right away, we're seeing Helen Obiri and Sabare Teferi, our winner from last year, Teferi. They're on the right of the screen, up in the front. And, you know, these two are really keying off each other. I think there are a lot of great women in the field, but there's been a lot of storylines, a lot of people excited to see how they come back. You know, they both raced here in the fall and didn't have the races that they necessarily wanted, but this is maybe more in their wheelhouse right now. They're coming from the shorter distances and moving on up into this half marathon distance. Also in the field, we see Molly Huddle. I mean, 38 years old. She's still got so much running left in her. She's a 3-time winner here at the New York City Half Marathon, and she's a 2-time Olympian, obviously. But I think her best stat so far is that she's this new mom, and so we have to give her a little shout out because JoJo is back home watching mommy.
Had her first baby back in April, and here she is back at the NYC Half.
Sabare Teferi is one to watch here. At 27 years old, has had tons of success on the streets of New York City, especially last year. But as Carrie sort of mentioned, a little bit of a redemption race on her hands here after dropping out of the New York City Marathon. So hoping to make the most out of another opportunity through the streets of New York.
Yeah, Helen Obiri, I mean, one of the most decorated runners in history. She has done so much on the track. She has won every single world championship thing that you can think of. She's been a world champ in cross country, on the track, and she just is now getting really started running these roads. She's run 64 minutes. She's got the fastest PB in the field, and obviously she's a 2-time Olympic medalist. I mean, you just have to talk about Helen Obiri. And she's making her full-time move to the States now after this. Her family is here in New York, ready to watch mom run, and she has a 7-year-old, and yeah, she's just such a bright star and has been for so long. We are really watching her today.
You've also got to keep your eyes on Jessica Warner-Judd. She is someone who has had tons of success from an early age. She was a middle distance star on the track for Great Britain and has made a really strong transition over to the roads. Clocked a half marathon personal best of 67:19 back in Houston in January, which puts her near the top of that British all-time list. So keep your eyes peeled on her.
And a Norwegian. I mean, we know Greta Weitz here in New York City. She won the New York City Marathon 9 times, but this is the one to watch too from Norway. Caroline Bjerkali Gravdal. She was 3rd here last year, and she loves racing here. She's a 7-time European champ. I mean, she's so good, and we obviously are looking at those bronze medals that she won there in the European Championships, and so I definitely think that this is a new Norwegian name that we're going to really get to know here in New York City.
So right up early in the front, like it is Helen Obiri doing a lot of the work early on.
So many incredible names in this professional field here today. 7 former champs. We have 17 Olympians, 12 Paralympians. A whole lot to keep you updated here this morning as we take the 13.1-mile trek through the streets of New York City. As a 2-time Olympian and a former American record holder, Molly Huddle has plenty of experience competing against the world's best. But 11 months after welcoming her daughter Josephine, Huddle is tackling a new challenge by learning how to navigate her career as a professional runner and a mother.
As a female athlete, planning your family is something you think about really long term because your body is your business. The priority shifts from your sport to, creating the baby and coming back from the birth process. Training through the pregnancy, it was a bit of a feel it out situation. There's just not a ton of information out there on elite pregnant female athletes training. My advice would be to create a network of women who've gone through it already. I have some athlete mom friends that, are so willing to offer advice. Alicia Montano is a pro. She has 3 kids. Sometimes I'll text Alphine Tolima and just say how did you do this? How did you do that? This is kind of pioneer territory. Women are running so much later into their professional careers and families are happening during their careers, whereas before it seemed like 2 separate occurrences. You can be an elite athlete and run well into your low 40s, especially in the marathon. And so you're probably going to have 1 or 2 children during that time if that's something you want to do. I remember the first time when I watched Alicia Montano race pregnant at the U.S. Championships. I was in my hotel room with my roommate, and we were like, this is huge. Like, we instantly knew what she was doing. She's showing everyone what she can do, that she's bringing this conversation into the news cycle. I think like Alicia and these like very high profile female athletes talking about it have really pushed the industry to change. I'm still motivated. Like, I think in the marathon, I can still PR and move up the list in that event. NYC Half has a great women's field. I always love competing in a great women's field, but I definitely want to mix it up with some of the women who I know would be like qualifying for world champs in the marathon and just see where I end up. Basically, you take on, you know, another job when you have a child. There's a lot of care involved, a lot of time involved in things like breastfeeding, and it feels like an endurance activity to like put her to sleep at night because it's like hours of rocking. But also you feel more, you feel more rewarded. She's definitely become a track baby. I don't want to pressure her too much, so you know, if she wants to be a runner, I would really encourage it and enjoy watching her train, and it would be amazing to run with her, but we'll see what happens. I know she has good genes, so ball's in her court.
All together now. Oh,
I know, right?
Huddle, one of 7 former champions competing here today, Carrie.
Yeah, she won here in 2015, which was really the kickoff to her awesomeness. And then we are looking at some Barry Teferi as well, last year's winner.
Ben True, the last American to win here. Belay Tillahun, who took us by surprise in 2019. And then there's Daniel Romanchuk, who started some of his dominance in 2019 and 2022 here.
And then in 2017, Susanna Scaroni, and last year's winner, she is also a winner from 2015, 2018, Manuela Schar. She wants to defend today.
And the wheelchair racers out on the course as we speak, both the men and women. There's a live look.
Yeah, no surprise to see both Manuela Schar and Susanna Scaroni right there together. You know, they've raced so many times over different distances. And, you know, Susanna Scaroni, she has come here and she's done well over the 10K here, over the marathon, over the half marathon. I mean, it's just really fun to see the range that she has. But last year was a tough year for her. She had COVID here, so she couldn't race here. But she also was hit by a car right after the Paralympics and had a back injury and just had to fight back. But she also got married and she got her dietitian's license. So she's, you know, just there's a lot of really fun things happening in her life, and you can see that in her racing. She just is happy and she's excited to be back. And when you have that in an athlete, you see great results.
Gritty and resilient in just all parts of life, it sounds like. And then on the men's side right now, I think we've got Jetson Platz, who's out to an early lead over Daniel Romanchuk. And so one thing to note about him is this is his first time contesting the half marathon distance, but you know, earlier this month he had already set a Dutch natural record of 1 hour and 24 minutes for the full marathon.
Well, Jetson Platz, I mean, he is such a phenomenal athlete. He's just got this cardio base from different sports. It's really fun to watch him here.
Back at the United Airlines NYC Half, the wheelchair racers are about a third of the way through the race. The professional women, they're about 2 miles in. We're just about ready for the men's race as well, and that brings us to the highly anticipated showdown between 2 of the greatest distance runners on the planet, and they're both from Uganda. We're excited about this head-to-head here today, Karen.
Oh, my goodness. The heavy hitters, you know, we have some guys that we got to talk about, but also the entire field is so good. Sam Grotwald has done such a nice job with his recruiting process here, and I think a lot of eyes are on this race today.
We're living in a time right now where a lot of people are obsessed with just how fast people can go. You've got 2 of the fastest people here. Today's conditions may not make it a world record or anything like that, but we're just treated to some pure racing between 2 of the most accomplished distance runners in the world. They both happen to be from the same country. It's Joshua Cheptegei and Jacob Kiplimo. They've gone only head-to-head at the half marathon distance once in their career, back at the World Half Marathon Championships a few years ago. When these 2 guys go head-to-head, they're always out to get the best out of each other, so it's hard to pick a side.
And you see a lot of guys jumping up and down there trying to stay warm. I mean, you're talking about temps in the low 30s at the start line in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and that's obviously a huge factor here today, Carrie.
It's a huge factor, especially for the guys that are coming from overseas. You know, the guys that have been training here in the States, we've had a cold winter kind of across the board. No matter if you're in California, in, you know, San Diego and in LA, the warmer parts of California, or if you're out here on the East Coast, it's been a cold winter. So a lot of the athletes were saying, hey, I'm okay with the wind and the cold temps. But the guys that are coming from Uganda and, you know, Kenya and Ethiopia, that's the ones that I'm concerned about today. But I'm loving that they all have a lot of clothes on for what they normally race in.
Yeah, it's like I'm never used to seeing Joshua Cheptegei wearing long sleeves during a race.
Well, even we see on the far left there, Reed Fisher from Minnesota, trains in Colorado. He's got long sleeves on, too.
When the guy from Minnesota's wearing long sleeves, that's when you know it's cold out.
That's right.
An interesting thing here to note about Reed Fisher racing, he was a late add to the field, but his wife was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer just a couple weeks ago, so he's actually wearing pink on his kit here today just to show his support for her. It's been a really rocky and emotional last couple months for him, but to just get on the starting line and compete today is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah, lots of thoughts and prayers going her way.
And it looks like the man taking it out hard from the front, that's Chris Thompson, the British Olympian and the marathon champion from 2021. A veteran of the game, still at it, going strong, and he's attacking this race. And he says he's wearing shorts and no arm sleeves. He's getting after it right away.
Well, Joshua Cheptegei, you know, he is the guy to watch. He is, look at this. I mean, 2-time Olympic medalist. He is now running his second half marathon for the first time in the States. 59:21 is his PB.
Jacob Kiplimo, he's on a hot streak right now after winning the World Cross Country Championships. He is making his New York City Half Marathon debut, but he is the world record holder, 57:31, set back at the 2021 Lisbon Half.
And Kennedy Kamutai, actually, he's another guy to watch. He is this guy that's run well under 60 minutes, 58:28. Can he handle the hills? That's the question, but I think we have to watch him today.
Edward Cheserek is a familiar face here in New York City. He had a front row seat to watch his fiance win the New York City Marathon last fall, Sharon Lokedi. But he was the runner-up here last year in a really fast race. But he's used to winning 17 NCAA titles at the University of Oregon, so watch out for him.
All right, Maru Teferi, you know, he is 30 years old. He's from Israel, but he's a 2-time Olympian in the marathon, and he's coming off of a phenomenal marathon in Fukuoka where he ran 2:06:43. With those kind of chops, you got to watch out for him.
Ben True, the last American to win the NYC Half, is back. He was supposed to race the New York City Marathon last year, but had to withdraw due to illness. He's working his way towards the Boston Marathon, and so this should be a nice little temperature check of how his fitness is at the moment and how training is going.
And Galen Rupp, you know, if you're in the States, you know this guy. He is a 2-time Olympic medalist. He's had some struggle the last couple years, but he says he's back. He doesn't know if he's quite fit enough to be up front, but he's back. And I think just getting through this race will be big for him today.
13.1 miles on the agenda today. The course for this event has changed quite a few times since the first running of the NYC Half. That was back in 2006. The latest iteration has it starting near the Brooklyn Botanical Garden in Prospect Park, Carrie.
Yes, they are starting in Prospect Park, and that's fun. But then the hills are right away for them. It's going to be a tough first 10K for all of the athletes. Before they get into Manhattan, they're going to have to cross that Manhattan Bridge. And I know a lot of people think, once I get to that bridge, okay, now I can start thinking that I'm getting closer to home. They're going to cross over the bridge. They're going to make their way to the FDNY or FDNR.
The FDR Drive.
FDR Drive, excuse me. And then, you know, Chris, everything happens from there.
Yeah, the FDR Drive rarely shuts down for runners, so this is a nice, rare occurrence for them. And then they'll make a left onto 42nd Street, where they'll be treated to Times Square. This is a unique element to the race. It's probably the only time it shuts down to runners before they eventually make their way over to Central Park. A couple more hills before you hit the finish line area near Tavern on the Green. So a challenging course, but that's what makes 13.1 an honest race.
Carrie's just so excited about the Commissioner's Cup that features the FDNY today.
Oh, that is so
against
fun.
the NYPD. They're facing off. This is the inaugural Commissioner's Cup, a friendly competition between New York's finest and New York's bravest. Commissioner Sewell, Commissioner Kavanaugh, they will serve as honorary captains. Just one of the many storylines we're keeping an eye on for you here.
You say friendly. I mean, it's pretty serious.
Well, we like to say friendly for the audience, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Maybe we're going to find out today.
Heavy training goes into that.
Heavy training for our professional women and men's wheelchair racers here as well, and we're seeing some of this unfold right now. Susanna Scaroni, one of those wheelchairers, comes into this race as the reigning TCS New York City Marathon champ. That victory last fall, a career highlight for her, and earlier this morning, she caught up with our Sam Ryan.
Here with Susanna Scaroni. Susanna, I know you worked really hard last year to get back here. You were training and had to pull out right before because of COVID. How excited are you, though, to be back here now?
It's wonderful to be back here. I love New York Roadrunners, and the spirit that this brings for the whole community is amazing, so it's wonderful to be back here.
What is your favorite part of this race?
I really like going through Times Square with just all the lights, and there's no, it's just so peaceful in Times Square, which I've never seen any other time.
You won it here in 2017 at New York City, TCS New York City Marathon. You were the defending champ for that race. What is it about New York City?
Really, New York Roadrunners, I can't say enough about. They do so much, and having the Rising Youth Program race alongside the Pro Division today is an example of that, in addition to the police department and the fire department's race. So I just love being a part of that.
You know, there is some tough competition, obviously, in particular on the Swiss side. There's also the competition of the wind, and we can't ignore that today. What are your expectations?
I think there are no expectations. It's so, like you said, there's a really strong field, and we have quite the cold, windy day. So I think you'll just see everyone working really hard, and I am excited to see what happens.
We're looking forward to it. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
I just love her attitude. She is so excited. She was so happy. I saw her in the elevator the other day, and she just said life has been good. She's finishing up her dietitian, like some of her testing, and she just feels like, I think you can just feel the weight is off her shoulders. She's ready to get after it and to get out here. She wants to win. You know, she's had such a great last, 16 months since her accident that it just has been fun to go and see her. She's got a new chair, a newer chair. We saw her win in Chicago at the marathon. We saw her win here in New York, and it's just been like she's just on a roll. She's just killing it right now.
That was a great interview she had with Sam Ryan, and one of the things that stood out to me when she said peaceful Times Square. I think that's the first time we've ever heard those two words used in the same sentence when describing Times Square. We look at the professional women and the professional men. Also here out on the course, strategy question to you, Chris and Carrie. On a cold day like today, good to have the hills right off the bat? Are you liking that as a runner?
I do. I think like the effort will probably warm your body up a little bit. I think what we're seeing in both these races is just a little bit of an aggressive approach to those early miles. What Chris Thompson is doing on the men's side is, I guess, what the kids are calling a full send, because he's all out, or all gas right now. But on the women's side, we've already seen a breakaway from Helen O'Beirne and Barrett Teferi, and that is what we kind of expected going into this race, is just the two heavy hitters up in the front.
33 degrees, a brisk March morning here in New York City. This is obviously on the cooler side, but is it too cold if you're trying to run a marathon here today?
I don't think so, but I do think that I'm surprised to see that Chris on the right, Chris Thompson, doesn't have hat or gloves on. You know, no matter what, it doesn't even feel like 33. It's like feels like 25. So it's pretty cold out there, but I think when you're running and if you have the proper gear on, you feel pretty good.
So on the women's side, the first split that we got was 15:50 at 5K with Helen O'Beary doing a lot of the work. And this is an interesting move because when I spoke to her coach, Dathan Ritzenheim, he kind of wanted her to bide her time a little bit and just let someone else be up in the front and do the work for them. You have someone to block the wind, but that's not Helen. This is the aggressive style that you've seen time and time again on the track, and so she's pushing.
Yeah, Helen O'Beary is definitely a competitor, and it's hard when you're a competitor to kind of let someone else dictate sometimes, but it is something that you need to do at times.
And right there you see it. They've already got like more than a 20-second lead on the rest of the field.
I like where Sunbury Teferi is right now. I like that she is keying off of Helen O'Beary. She's letting her be in the lead. She's kind of just getting herself through it. One of the things that I talked to her agent about with Sunbury Teferi is the mentality of coming back to a race where you didn't have your best race. So she didn't run her race in New York, the marathon last fall. She's had so much success here on the streets of New York City, but she needs a good race mentally. She's there physically, but mentally, and that's sometimes even harder than getting over the hump of being back physically.
Helen has Sunbury right behind her. How difficult is that as a runner to not allow that to change your game plan, feeling someone right behind you right now?
I think, especially on the roads, you're just sort of thinking like, man, I've got this person right on my heels and there's so much room. It's like, why do you have to be right on my heels?
But I kind of like it. I like when someone is right there. You hear them. You're not wondering. You know, right now, Helen O'Beary can feel that. She's got that pressure. And also, she's not already thinking, am I going too hard? I think one of the things that Dathan Ritzenheim told me is that he wants her to just race today. As we're watching Chris Thompson just crush.
Yeah, Chris Thompson, he split 9:45 at 2 miles. So his first 2 miles, first mile, it took it out at 5:05, gapped the rest of the field. And then the second one dropped it down to 4:40. But again, an important thing to note is that there are these hills in Prospect Park early on, but he's putting a move on right away and seeing if the rest of the field can catch him.
Wow, look at that huge field behind him. There's like 15 athletes in that chase pack, and that is a dangerous pack, and he knows that. When you have all of those athletes together, they can work. It's just like the peloton in cycling, right? You work to go back up and get that guy out in the lead. So it's interesting that he's taking off like this.
The full send, as Chris called it. Well put, my friend. The professional men and women wheelchairers. We're looking at some of the splits right now, and what stands out to you both?
Yeah, it's just that Platt is got a little bit of a lead on Daniel Romanchuk, but that lead was a little bit bigger earlier on in the race, and Romanchuk is clawing away, so you cannot count out the defending champ.
No, you never count out Daniel Romanchuk. He is very humble, and he doesn't like to toot his own horn very often, and he did say, this has been a little bit of a different fall and early winter for him coming back from that injury, but yeah, he knows these streets. He studies the streets of New York City and all of his races almost to a T. So he knows every little pothole and everything that they have. And so you can't count him out. But I think Jetse Platt is kind of a new name that we definitely need to keep our eye on. And, this is his first time running 13.1 miles, but he is so good and he's so used to racing that he's always in the conversation.
Platt, a Paralympic champion in both cycling and triathlon. Last year switched to road racing when he made his marathon debut at the London Marathon. The women making their way up the Manhattan Bridge, and as you said, Carrie, when you get to this part of the race, you're thinking, okay, I got this.
Yeah, I think that those beginning hills are a little daunting, and now you got through it, and now you're warmed up, you're in race mode. And it's sort of like, let's get to that flat section. There's, coming up, there's this long stretch where you can settle in. And so I think that that's what they're doing right now, getting over this hill, and then they can get home.
Whereas some people probably think of the bridge as a little bit of a tougher part of the course for someone like Helen O'Beary. This suits her very well as a cross-country savant, having won a world championship medal there. And so in the pro side of things, this is where typically moves are made. You want to try and exert and get some of the sting on your competitor's legs, but Teferi is right on her heels. And I guess for the people watching at home wondering about like Helen O'Beary's arms, it's like she must be laboring a lot really early on in the race, but no, that's just Helen, and she always goes to the blades right from the very beginning.
Helen O'Beary 6th at the New York City Marathon in her debut. You know, I mean, I don't think she was thrilled with it. I think there were so many eyes on her coming in, but she is so good. This is a woman that has run 64 minutes over the half marathon. You know, that is some very fast running. It's like a 4:55 range per mile. So she definitely knows how to run fast. But I really like how Teferi looks very smooth as they pass right there through mile 5. And Teferi is just a fun athlete to watch. She's young. She is so good on the track, but she's transitioned so well on the roads that I think a lot of people are excited for her future.
And we talked about O'Beary feeling Teferi over her shoulder. How smart of a play is that by Teferi to get right up behind O'Beary, especially on a cold day like today?
You want to play mind games with your competitors as well. So, I mean, I think that's part of it, too, is like there's no sharing of the lead at this point. You want to make it as easy as possible for yourself. So, Sunbury's letting Helen O'Beary block the win for her right now, and there is obviously some wind and some cold temperatures being felt on that bridge. She's sitting pretty right now, and I think like for Helen at some point she might want to wave her over and be like, hey, come on, please do a little bit of the work. But this is a race. There's prize money on the line.
Yeah, you could see a little bit of movement with Helen O'Beary when we had that straight on shot where she was sort of looking a little bit, not necessarily, you know, motioning for her to go around her, but she was looking at her. She knows that she's been in the lead for a long time.
And how about the gap these two have created between them and the rest of the field at this point?
Yeah, that was 5:28 for that 5th mile going up the bridge. I mean, that is it's pretty impressive, and that's the reason why they've built up this much of a lead.
Well, as the United Airlines NYC Half continues, the elite women who started at 7:08, they're getting close to the halfway point of this race. The men started at 7:20. They're about 5 miles in. The wheelers are closer to the business end of their race, and I feel like Chris Thompson just might catch these ladies at this point the way he's running out of the chute here.
Well, he is a 40-plus athlete. You know, he's getting older, but he is definitely a veteran and is very good in his own right. But I definitely think it's a little interesting that he's gone out this hard and nobody has gone with him.
Yeah, I mean, for him, like there aren't all that many races on his record for this year, so this is his opener.
Helen O'Beary, Saberi Teferi going to be making their way to Times Square very soon. That is where we find our Brittany Bell, who we welcome for the first time today. Good morning, Brittany.
And good morning to you too, Ryan, on this cold Sunday morning. So right now I'm here with Marissa Munoz, New York Roadrunners Vice President for Community Impact. So we're at the start for the Times Square Kids Run. Now, Marissa, tell me, for the participants, are these kids that this is their first time running this distance, or are these just like seasoned veterans?
Well, we have a good mix of both. So today we have our Rising New York Roadrunner participants, including our youth wheelchair training program participants and kids from the general public. So we have options available for all abilities. So we have our more serious competitive heat, and then we also have another heat it's more of a fun run for our less competitive runners. So we certainly hope that they appreciate, you know, this opportunity to run through Times Square. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be alongside their pros as well as other runners of all paces, ages, and abilities.
It really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So now let's go to Noelle and Alexandra. Okay, guys, I know you are bundled up because of the temperatures, but give us some insight on your training program for the race.
So she's a sprinter and I'm a long distance. So I've been practicing for the mile with like doing long runs, and she's been doing like intervals.
Great. What about you?
So yeah, we've been running every Tuesday and Thursday, and we've been practicing for all these New York Roadrunner races we come and do.
Yeah. And so since you guys have been practicing, but what would you say to kids who might be on the fence and think they can't run? What would you say to encourage them to get out here?
Just like keep going, and even if it's hard, you just need to like keep trying because you'll get better.
All right. Well, good luck on your race, and you can see they are bundled up. That's the key this morning because we have those temperatures down into the 30s, feels like the 20s, but it is going to be a great morning for a run because it is dry and we have a lot of sunshine. Ryan?
All right, Brittany, thanks. We'll check back in with you here in just a little bit. A little bit of a gap now between Helen and Saberi, Carrie.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of a point in the race where people start to move, and this is that downhill part of the section where I was saying they're going to get into that flat section, and this is where I'm not surprised to see a move by Helen Obiri.
Yeah, Helen is making a little bit of a break, but it's not the type of move that I don't think Saberi can cover. So this race is far from being over at this point. But yeah, right through Chinatown, you saw a little bit of an acceleration from Helen Obiri.
Is there a fine line at this point in the race when to make your move and when not to make your move? Is it too early to make your move here at the 6-mile mark?
Definitely too early, but I think that you can start to move and you can take advantage of those downhills and this flat section here. But you see that Teferi, she's checking her watch. She's looking, you know, like she's still relaxed, and I think she's just trying to stay within herself because she remembers the hills from last year.
And Chris Thompson up at the 5K point had about a 14-second lead on the rest of the field. If you would have told me coming into this race, oh yeah, after 5K, like Chris Thompson would be up on Jacob Kipolimo by that much, I'd be a little bit shocked considering that one is the world record holder and the other hasn't raced in a little bit of a while. So this is really, it's a nice indicator that Chris Thompson appears to be back and healthy after a rough year last year. He was slated to run at the World Championships for Great Britain, but had to withdraw due to, I believe, it was visa issues. But yeah, he's finally getting a race under his legs. I actually had the chance to be at a half marathon in the Cayman Islands once that Chris Thompson won. So I got to see him at both extremes of weather. Really hot and humid, and here today freezing cold and still thriving.
Well, the cold weather doesn't seem to be bothering him. I mean, we talked about what some of these runners are wearing. He's wearing nothing. No gloves, no hat.
I know. I didn't like that when I saw that, but I also know that, you know, he's British, so he's running the cold. He knows
he feels right at home.
Yeah, and he's tough. You know, he's a veteran, as we said. He's 41 years old.
Chris Thompson off and running. We take a look at the wheelers on the men's and women's side.
Susanna Scaroni on the left there, she hasn't really put much distance that it looks like right now. On second, it's kind of been the same way through, but, you know, she's kept that pressure on, which she always seems to do.
And Platt is building on his lead on Roman Chuck at this point now. He's got up by more than 3 minutes now, so it's looking like this could be his day, his first ever half marathon, and he's looking strong.
Well, I know Dorian, who brings in these wheelchair athletes, said that Yetz is the guy to watch. Yetz is definitely somebody that is, you know, entering into this world of road racing, not doing the triathlon, just racing on the roads here, and he is a bright star, she said. She really thought that was the guy for us to watch. And as you see, Helen Obiri on the left, she now is looking back. She has not really gained too much on her.
We're on a news network. I can break a little bit of news here for a sec. So when I spoke to Coach Dathan Ritzenhein about Helen Obiri and her training, he said that things have been going really, really well. And last year she decided to recycle a little bit of the New York City Marathon fitness and raced a half marathon in December while she was on vacation with her family. But this time around has been just gearing up for this race. But there will be a decision made after this week because the door is open to her potentially being a late entry into a spring marathon.
Oh.
Last fall, a lot of hype and attention around her at the New York City Marathon, and so maybe it might have gotten to her a little bit being away from her family as well. She ended up finishing 6th, which was really strong, but now that the second time around, she took some lessons from it. Could we see Helen Obiri in a spring marathon? We'll see how she comes off of this race. But
nice.
yeah, so I mean, something to watch for here.
Well, it sure doesn't feel like spring out there today. Just don't tell that to Chris Thompson. In his mind, it's 70 and sunny. He's out for a nice jog here on a Sunday morning.
Well, he can, I think, feel that pack. I mean, the pack is right there still. He knows it, and it is tough right now. He's all alone. He doesn't have anyone to break that wind. Look at his hair is blowing. You can tell his singlet's blowing. It is windy.
He's got Idina Menzel in his head saying the cold never bothered me anyway at this point, the way he's looking out there.
Are you going to sing it?
Oh,
I mean, we know you like
your... first you broke news, Chris. Now you might as well sing for us, too. Let's check off all the boxes.
I think we'll save it. Maybe we'll save it for when they pass the theater district in Times Square.
I'll warm my vocal cords up too if you want.
Check out the women right now. The gap is narrowing between Helen and Saberi.
That is a huge mental thing, right? When you are trying to make that push, and not that Helen O'Beary was trying to put it away, but she was trying to put the pressure on. She was trying to get the race going a little bit, and Teferi now to close that gap up. Mentally, that's big.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to be annoying to your competitors to get in their head, and I think that's what Teferi is trying to do to O'Beary by just staying on her heels and being immediately right behind her. I'm reminded of the 2016 U.S. Olympic Marathon trials where Meb Keflezighi was leading for a bit and Galen Rupp was right behind him, and Meb waved him and said, hey, go, there's so much road to share, you don't have to be right on my heels because you're clipping me. And you know, Galen was just playing mind games where it's sort of he's biding his time, waiting to make his move. This is very similar. Teferi might be trying to do the same to O'Beary.
Well, and listen, Teferi is the defending champion. She wants that title again, and she sat. If she's using the exact tactic that she did last year, it was a brilliant one. She sat on Irene Cheptai. She waited until the final hill here in Central Park, and then she used that killer 1,500-meter speed that she has. So we know that Helen O'Beary can run super fast on the track as well. She's got all kinds of talent to lay it down at the very end. But this right here, if Teferi is running within herself, is crucial. She is attacking, and she is able to cover the moves that Helen O'Beary is trying to make.
Who looks better to both of you at this point?
Well, I just, it's hard to tell with Helen when she's always going to the arms and looks like she's tired and laboring, but no, she's strong.
Back to the wheelers, the men's wheelchair race nearing its conclusion, making their way to Central Park and the finish line here in the shadows of the Tavern on the Green.
Yeah, Jetse Platz, I mean, he is so known for being so strong. He, you know, first started out as a hand cyclist, then he went to the triathlon, and now he's strictly on the roads here. And he has such power up above. We know Daniel Romanchuk, we've said it time and time again, he has this 6-foot wingspan, right? He's got these huge, massive arms that he can use, and he is so phenomenal on the course. But this guy, I think, is the maybe, I don't want to say the new guy, because he's been around and he's obviously clearly a great athlete, but maybe newer to the sport of road racing that we know.
The 31-year-old native of the Netherlands finished in 3rd place in November's TCS New York City Marathon, and looking like he's well on his way to winning the United Airlines NYC Half.
First time running 13.1 miles. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, his bio on the International Paralympic Committee page calls him an athletic machine with whom no other man in the PTW category has been able to keep up with. I will take any sort of bio that describes me as an athletic machine.
Yes.
Well, as far as half marathon debuts go, doesn't get much better than this for Jetse Platt.
Well, you know, once you get into the park, you are so close to being home, and that's what's so fun. I went out and ran there yesterday. Chris, you get to run here every single day, but I ran the last part of the course, and it's hard, but yet it's so exciting because you know you're going to get close to this Tavern on the Green. Anyone that knows the Tavern on the Green, you either finish it coming the other way from the marathon, or you're finishing it this way now today as we are in the half marathon, and it just gets your blood pumping. You get excited to get here.
The finish line in sight for Jetse Platt. And he's going to win his United Airlines NYC Half debut. Going away, a dominating performance by Jetse Platt here this morning in New York City.
All smiles, I love that.
Remarkable effort, especially to take down the likes of Daniel Romanchuk, who is the defending champion and one of the most accomplished wheelchair athletes. And so, yeah, what a day for him.
All smiles for Jetse, the fist pump, and now we check back in on the professional men's side, and the gap is closing on one Chris Thompson, guys.
I know, this is probably, I mean, you're running on fear at this point, especially when you turn your head and you see the likes of Jacob Kiplimo, Joshua Cheptegei, and Edward Cheserek on your heels. But yeah, it seems like they're reeling him in, and the hot pace was a move. It was an aggressive, bold choice, but the guys bided their time, and they're going to catch him.
It'll be interesting to see what Chris Thompson does now. Is he still running at a pace that he's okay with, able to be able to hang on to this pack now as they get him? We know they're going to get up there and get him, but can he regroup? And I think that's the big thing. That's one of the toughest things to do mentally when you're racing, is when somebody comes up on you and goes by you, can you react in time and get back on it, settle back in, and kind of have a second half of the race, almost a second race within the race.
Get your second win,
yes,
if you will.
There you go.
Well, the cool part is going to be that once that pack catches up, it's anyone's race. You see how many guys are still in contention there. Whereas on the women's side, it's been a duel, a head-to-head showdown between Obiri and Teferi for the last couple miles.
Well, I definitely think on the men's side too, they were just. Everyone is looking at Cheptegei and Kiplimo. Like, you know, that's been the story for a month or two now when we knew they were coming here, is to watch these two guys, the best from the track and the world record holder, come together and race again. They haven't raced very many times, but every time they do, everyone is excited about it. And you can see the entire field is in that pack, and they're thinking, besides Chris Thompson, they're thinking about what are the big guys going to do. So a lot of times you can get wrapped up in that, thinking that it's their day. It's Kiplimo and Cheptegei's day. Well, no, now it's what, 15 people are still in the race.
When you get to the 6 mile mark, the 8 mile mark, as the men and women are at this point, is weather still a factor, or are you not even feeling the outside temperature right now?
Yeah, I think it still could be a factor. Your body warms up, but then after a while, you've been out there for quite a bit of time. And so, yeah, the choice of those arm sleeves or the gloves, like, I think the wise move that Meb Keflezighi, I think, once gave a pro tip about was just sort of never ditch them. Never ditch the arm warmers or the hat, because you just never know if you're going to need them later on in the race. You just roll them down and put them to use later on if need be. But yeah, no, it's still cold out there.
And the wind, when the wind hits you at different points in this race, right? When it comes at you straight on, it gets so much colder. And so that we just saw as they made that turn, the flags were just going and the posters were going. So it's definitely windy out there.
We talked about how Chris Thompson had separated himself from the pack, and the pack has certainly caught up to him. Are we surprised more than 6 miles in, 31 minutes, to see this many men grouped together here at this juncture of the race?
I do think so, because it was sort of like a patient approach. No one wants to be the guy up in the front doing all of the work and leading, because you're taking, again, that wind to the face, and you're the one doing all of the work. So I think that for a while, everyone was kind of biding their time, maybe keeping their eyes on the heavy hitters of Kiplimo and Cheptegei. And yeah, so we're waiting. I think we're in that point right now where we're waiting to see who's going to be the one making the big move. And up in the front right now, you see Kiplimo and Chezarek up there, guys who are fully capable of putting in that surge.
They're not running even close to event record here. So I think that they're well over 60 minutes for the pace right now. So all of the guys in that pack have run that pace. So I think even Chris Thompson, he's run that pace. So now he just needs to regroup, and he's settling into the middle of the pack now. Can he kind of get back in it, like re-engage, and we'll have to see here. But yeah, those heavy hitters. Edward Chezarek on the left is our top returner from last year. You know, he is such an athlete that has such pedigree, and you can never count him out. We haven't talked about him enough here. 17-time NCAA champion. That stat goes with him everywhere. But even in his professional life as a runner, he has been solid, and he's always in the mix.
17 men, I count, grouped together here at the 32-minute mark of this United Airlines NYC half.
Now,
a stark contrast to what we're seeing on the left side, as Helen and Saberi have separated themselves a long time ago from the rest of the field.
Now, one guy who isn't in that pack of 17 right now is Galen Rupp, who's about 8 or 10 seconds behind that whole group at 10K. Again, not anything to be overly concerned about, but you know, for him, like, he's one of the biggest stars coming into this race. That if the back injury of his that sidelined him last year during this race and during the New York City Marathon is an issue, I mean, it doesn't bode well for him for the next couple races. He doesn't have a spring marathon lined up, but this was supposed to be a big one for him, and I'm not seeing him there right now.
Well, Kennedy Kamutai right there up in the middle of the pack. Somebody coming into this race with a very good PB. He's got 58.28 on his running resume. You know, he is a little bit of a question mark, though. The last race that he tried to run was in February, and he did DNF that. He's only 23 years old, so he is young and he's excited about racing. But to find him up on the shoulder there of one of the world's best, that's got to be exciting for him.
Yeah, he's the Kenyan hope for this race to try and upset the two Ugandan stars. But like you mentioned, sort of a very new, fresh face on the scene. Ran that 59-minute performance at the Valencia half marathon last year, where we saw, I believe it was like 5 or 6 guys break 60 minutes. So he's on the cusp of having that moment of winning one of these big half marathons. He's always been in the mix when he's been at these races, second, third place. But today he's trying to get the first place, the gold medal.
And the man in the yellow there in the middle, Zuhair Talbi, you know quite a bit about him, Chris, but he is a guy at the NCAA level here. When he was competing, he ran the #2 fastest 10,000 meters ever, and he's still somebody that we have to watch. He just ran a great PB in Houston just in January.
Yeah, he ran 61:08 there, and Zuhair Talbi was someone who popped on my radar back in 2021 ahead of the Olympics in a very low-key meet in Austin, Texas in February of that year when races were just coming back. He won a 10,000-meter race there, and I was commentating it, and coming into the race, he was an unknown. I didn't have that many notes on him, and I had to kind of scramble on my laptop to dig things up on him, but he's an NAIA star out of Oklahoma City, and he's still training out there, signed a professional contract with ASICS right after he graduated, and so he's taken really well to the roads, and so he's hoping to be kind of Morocco's next big star when it comes to the half marathon and marathon distance.
Big move here by Hellen Obiri, just working. You could see her kind of dipping her chin, really going to those arms, driving those knees up one of the hills here that she's going to start attacking. But yes, a big move, and you can see a lot of space there.
We're approaching the finish line here in Central Park for the women's wheelchair race. And this one looks all but over, Carrie.
Susanna Scaroni just crushing it today. You know, she won here in 2017, and she came back here. She has had so much success in the last year, and you can just feel it. Every time you talk to her, she's excited about it. But look at this resume. She was here and won over 26.2, and today it looks like she's going to win over 13.1.
Yeah, she snatched her first TCS New York City Marathon title in November, breaking the tape at 1:40.143. That broke the previous course record of 1:43.04 set by the great Tatiana McFadden in 2015. And here she is again, making her mark in New York City, is the American, the 31-year-old Susanna Scaroni.
Looks like Manuela Schar is not that far, but you can see that she definitely has put some distance on. She's about 12 seconds back. Manuela Schar, 3-time winner here, knows this course so well, loves racing here in New York City, and is having a great year herself. But so Susanna Scaroni, it really is her time to shine. We've talked about McFadden. You know, Tatiana McFadden is now training and using a little bit of a different approach. She's going to be racing this spring, so we are still seeing the great Tatiana McFadden out on the roads. But with 200 meters to go, it is all Susanna Scaroni.
All business for Susanna Scaroni, and like as you kind of mentioned, this was quite the last 16 months for her in terms of just life, and for her to be back here after missing the race last year and to get the win, it's truly special to see.
Just look at that power that she has.
She won in 2017, the United Airlines NYC Half, and here is Susanna Scaroni, your 2023 United Airlines NYC Half champion. Congratulations to the American, Susanna Scaroni.
Well, we've seen her win over the 10K here at the New York Mini. We've seen her win over 13.1 and over the marathon. She loves coming here. And look at that smile. Oh, she went for it. And there's Manuela Schar right behind her.
Great job. The thrill of victory, Susanna Scaroni. All smiles, and rightfully so. What a scene here in Central Park as she celebrates her win here at the United Airlines NYC Half. Back now to a live look at the professional women and men's field, and Hellen Obiri really opening it up now from Sabrini, I should say.
Yeah,
Saberi Teferi.
Yeah, that was the big move. Helen Obiri has opened up more than a 10-second lead now. She split 15:59 for her last 5K when she crossed the 15K mark in 47:29. So this is Helen's big move and the big breakaway. Last year during the New York City Marathon, it was the late stages of the race when the heat and humidity took its toll on her. And so today is a day for redemption for Helen Obiri.
If you're Saberi, is it hard not to feel a little bit of defeatedness here at this point when you see Helen opening up this big of a lead at this juncture of the race?
You know, I don't know if she feels defeat from Helen Obiri. I think she respects her and she knows what a great athlete is, and she's trying to have a solid race, and I think that's the big thing. Her agent was telling me she needs to just have a really good race. She's been a little bit down, and as an athlete, it's really hard when you're not seeing all that hard work, you know, see the rewards from it. And so Sunbury Teferi has had such great success here in New York City, and for her, if she does end up being a runner-up today, that is still a great finish for her. So I don't think she necessarily sees it as defeat. She wants to win, but Helen Obiri in herself is just such a phenom.
And over on the men's side, the 8th mile was clocked in at 4:37, which is the fastest one of the race so far. That's when they caught Chris Thompson. And now we have a new leader up in the front, and that's Andy Bouchard, who has been spending some time out in Ethiopia training alongside Olympic gold medalist Mo Farah as he gets ready for a marathon this upcoming spring. But Andy Bouchard has been putting in work alongside some of these other top athletes, and he's no stranger to being at the world stage with the likes of Joshua Cheptegei and Jacob Demlimo.
We talk about Helen Obiri, a 2-time Olympic medalist, 7-time world champion, who made her marathon debut at last year's TCS New York City Marathon, where she finished 6th. And here she is running away from the rest of the field in her United Airlines NYC Half debut, the 33-year-old Kenyan.
I really love that she's been able to go back home to Kenya and train with her family. You know, when she came to the New York City Marathon, she had been here by herself for a long time in Boulder training with her group, and that is really hard to do. I mean, her daughter's only 7 years old, so she made that sacrifice to be away from her family. She's been back home now training and loving being with them. And now I just saw Tanya yesterday. I saw Helen Obiri. She was getting some pre-race work done on the massage table. And it's just, you can just feel that synergy of having her daughter there. She was so excited to see mommy run. You know, she was so excited to have her hat and gloves on because it was going to be a cold day today. And, you know, I think that's a big thing. When you have your family, when you have that synergy, it makes for a better runner. And clearly we're seeing that today.
Well, Sunbury Teferi's event record from last year is 67:35. That's about 5:09 per mile. And Obiri right now projected to shatter that mark here this morning at the United Airlines NYC Half. An impressive showing here in her half marathon debut. Impressive showings by the wheelchair racers of both the men's and women's. Sam Ryan at the finish line with both of our champions. Sam.
Yeah, Ryan Yetse-Platt with his half marathon debut here at the New York City Half. We both agree it was cold at the start. What was key for you today?
Yeah, it was a cold start, but I was preparing quite well. I come from Holland, and it's always cold in the winter there. Yeah, and just really looking forward to start. Against Daniel as well, Daniel Romanchuk. He's such a legend in the sport. So I was thinking for a hard battle together, but I was able to drop him in the uphill, and yeah, it was only a hard push to the finish. I'm super happy.
You were here in November, finished 3rd in the TCS New York City Marathon. How much did that encourage you to come here to run this one?
I think pretty good, because I knew the course will be hard. But beautiful. I really liked it to train also in the park here, and the course is such beautiful. I really liked the uphill and also the downhill. So yeah, it was really cool to race last year here and now again for the half.
What a half marathon debut, Yetse-Platt. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
Back to you guys.
And we check out the results on the men's side, and Kara, you said Yetse-Platt was a guy to keep an eye on today, and that proved to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, he is just so gracious to be here, loves being here, and I think that is the name to watch. But Daniel Romanchuk, once he has a little bit more time to train, I think we're going to see him squeeze that lead in a little bit and not maybe see 5 minutes in between the two.
Yeah, that's a huge gap.
It was a big gap
between the first and second place finishers on the men's side. Speaking of huge gaps, how about the one Helen Obiri has opened up here from Sumberi Teferi and the rest of the women's field, Chris.
Yeah, she's not taking much time to take in all the lights and the people in Times Square. She's got business to take care of as she makes her way to Central Park. But no, this is signature Hellen Obiri. I mean, at this point in the race, she's broken away. Just the type of mental games that she also plays. She just lays the hammer down on her opponent. She's an intimidating figure there because she's got all the medals and stuff from all throughout her career that, yeah, I'm scared of Hellen Obiri if I'm one of the other competitors.
Obiri represented Kenya in Rio in 2016 and Tokyo at the 2020 Olympic Games, earning silver medals in the 5,000 meters at both games. And she's putting together a gold medal performance here this morning at the United Airlines NYC Half. About 2.5 miles to go before she reaches the finish line here in Central Park. Right now, they'll send it back to the finish line here, just outside the Tavern on the Green, where Sam Ryan is joined by our women's wheelchair champion. Sam.
Yeah, just talking with Susanna Scaroni about how she sweeps New York because she is the TCS New York City Marathon champ and comes here and follows it up with the United Airlines NYC Half Championship. We were talking to you at the start. We saw that megawatt smile at the finish. What was that emotion when you crossed?
It was a lot of happiness. You know, I like getting to give everything I have out there that day, and I did that today. And so it's nice just to be able to be here, and that just makes me happy.
You know, we talked about your journey and not being able to be here this year. So how do you sum up that and the road back and the road to where you have been?
Yeah, I don't take racing for granted at all, especially now. I've had to miss some races for miscellaneous things, and so it's always an honor, and you're always just grateful you made it to the start, to be honest. So it's awesome to be here.
The most challenging part today, what was it of the course?
Really, you know, climbing the Manhattan Bridge. It's a really long, steep hill that's pretty narrow, so you've got a lot of athletes up there. That's kind of where we passed the men. So it was challenging right there, I thought, but it was good.
You pulled it out with a win. Congratulations, Susanna.
Thank you so much.
Back to you guys.
What a day for Susanna Scaroni, a 9-second winner over second place finisher Manuela Schär.
I like what she said. You don't take racing for granted. You know, so many times you get into this rhythm and you think it's just going to happen, and then all of a sudden an injury or, you know, God forbid you get hit by a car like she did. I mean, she is really lucky to be back, and we're thankful that she's here, and I think that that's a big lesson to learn. You know, you just can't take things for granted.
What a cool scene here on the left as Hellen Obiri makes her way through Times Square all by her lonesome.
All alone, way out now, and she really can see that she is, you know, pushing and gaining every step of the way.
This is a great race for Hellen to really build you know, just upon it from here. Like, this is a strong foundation for the rest of her 2023. She, you know, to get a victory here if she holds on would be a big step forward. I mean, there's a lot of changes to come. You know, she switched coaches last year in the lead up to the New York City Marathon to start working with Dathan Ritzenhein and the On Athletics Club. So she's planning to move to Boulder full time now that she's back in the States and her family was able to join her here. So some changes coming up, but for her, like, this is nice that she's finally gotten to a routine of the old winning ways of Hellen Obiri.
On the men's side, 3 gentlemen have separated themselves from the rest of the pack, and as you guys know, we've seen a lot of close finishes in the history of this event. 3 times the men's race has been decided by 1 second or less. Chris, I wonder if we're in for another really close finish here today.
Yeah, I mean, and this one in particular, we you know, it's Kiplimo and Cheptegei right there with Kiplimo with the orange top and Cheptegei with the orange bottoms, and the guy in the middle of it is Zuhair Talbi, who is further down on the starting list when you sort them by personal best, but someone who is really thriving on the roads. Last year ran the BAA 5K, 10K, and half marathon, and this year he's getting ready to make his marathon debut out in Boston in just a couple months. But right now, he's got to try and find a way to keep up with the world record holder, who's making a little bit of stepping on the gas a little bit up in the front.
And we talked about how excited we were seeing these 2 guys go head-to-head, and here they are, first and second in Kiplimo and Cheptegei.
Yeah, Kiplimo was almost looking like he was chomping at the bit a little bit. Just a few moments back, he looked like he wanted to maybe get back into that rhythm. You know, he's run 57:31 over the half marathon. That is his world record. He's an Olympic bronze medalist. He's a world championship bronze medalist. He has so much already on this short time of being a pro. He's only 22 years old, so definitely has some great pedigree. But Cheptegei there in second. He too, I mean, he only seems like he wins or gets second. He's just always in the mix.
The interesting thing about Cheptegei is that this is his second half marathon, and the first one was at the Half Marathon World Championships. But I had the chance of spending 2 mornings with him this week in Central Park, and I sort of asked him, it was like, oh wow, it's like I forget that you haven't run 57 or 58 minutes, and he told me that the year that he ran the World Half Marathon Championships, if it was up to him, with these athletes, sometimes coaches and agents figure into the decisions, but Cheptegei wanted to run the Valencia half marathon that year and thought that he might have a shot at the world record. So world records have always been on Cheptegei's mind when he's set them on the track for 5,000 and 10,000 meters. And someday, we could see him try and take down his own countryman's half marathon world record of 57:31. But as of right now, that 59:29 is his PR.
Let's look at the history between these 2 great runners from Uganda. In the times they've gone head-to-head 10 different times, today marking the 11th occasion, and only once, Carrie and Chris, have they finished first and second.
Yeah, and so today could be another one of those days, but the last time out was most recently at the World Half Marathon Championships, at the World Cross Country Championships, and Kiplimo took the victory there. The race was moved up, I think, a couple minutes because there was a big rainstorm along the way, and yeah, but Uganda had a strong showing as a team. That's the cool part to the story of these 2 stars that we're seeing here today, is that over the last couple of years, as their own personal profiles have risen within the sport, it has also uplifted Uganda as another distance running powerhouse out of East Africa.
Well, Kiplimo just beat Cheptegei at the World Cross Country Championships last month in Australia, so I guess the question is, how much confidence does that world title give the 22-year-old here at this juncture of the race?
Huge, and I also think it plays into Cheptegei's mind. I mean, he did seem like he had maybe a little bit more reservation coming into this race because Kiplimo is here, but clearly they still are together enough where once those hills get to them again in Central Park, anything can happen.
Yeah, Cheptegei is the type of athlete who knows when to kind of schedule his peak during races. And so, like, for him, his eyes are definitely probably further along at the World Championships. Those are the days that he has circled in his calendar. And maybe there might be 1 or 2 Diamond League track races that take place between now and then. Whereas Kiplimo races a little bit more often and is more aggressive in these types of races, where I don't necessarily think that there's a peak to Kiplimo's season. Every time out, it's all out for him.
Yeah, those World Championships you're talking about are this summer again, so lots happening on the running calendar. But Kiplimo definitely looks like he's putting some distance in between the 2.
He has not lost a half marathon since he finished second at the 2020 Valencia half, where he lost to Kibiwott Candy, who broke the world record at the time. He ran 57:32 to win that race, and then Kiplimo takes that down by 1 second a year later in Lisbon. So yeah, this is a move for sure from Kiplimo.
Helen Obiri all alone. You know, we talked about her form. This is how she runs, but you can see that she's really working as hard as she can. There's some little ups and downs here in the final stages of this race, and she is powering home. She's tired, though. You can tell when your eyes, anytime your eyes dip down to the ground and they're not out in front of you, you can tell you're starting to labor a little bit. And she's really put on that big move. She put on those big moves when she needed to, and she definitely has shown her awesomeness today. She is really crushing it again.
If you're in Helen's position right now, do you know how far ahead you are of Sunbury Teferi? Do you think she's realized she's opened up this big of a gap?
I definitely think that she probably realizes, you know, you could take a quick look behind you. You can do that more so on the roads than you do on the track. And so if she were to peek over her shoulder, she would see the gap that she has. Sometimes I think the way I like to gauge off of, you know, distance between competitors when I'm in a race is just trying to see if, like, when the next clapping takes place behind me. It's like, I wonder the next cheers. If I can't hear them, then that's a good sign.
You can almost get a little bit lost, though. You can hide a little bit on these ups and downs and little slight turns. So it is hard to see people. So she has to think, you know, and you kind of want to play those mind games that you think they're closer than they actually are.
Simberi Teferi's event record, 67:35 from last year, just over 5 minutes per mile. And Hellen Obiri looking like she's on her way to setting a new course record here today.
She is flying. The biggest thing I'm wondering with Hellen is just sort of as she makes this move to the United States with those Olympic medals, those World Championship medals, is like, do those come along with the move as well, or do they stay back home in Kenya?
Yeah, because they definitely have their place back there. And, you know, we've talked about Edward Cheserek, for instance, in the men's race. You know, he has a farm back home and he loves to be in Kenya, but he also has a place in Flagstaff as well. So they definitely will split up their time. But I think with the family here, they're going to call the U.S. home for a long time.
What a day it's been here at the United Airlines NYC Half. You're looking live at the professional men and women out on the course here in New York City, the 13.1 mile course, where Hellen Obiri is about to cross the finish line here in Central Park, and doing so in what appears to be a record pace here this morning, Carrie and Chris.
Well, she loves that, seeing 400 to go, being a trackster that she is. You know that she's thinking of the bell lap right now. They're ringing it, and she is getting into that sprint form, getting up on her toes a little bit, driving still. There's still a little bit of a bump that she's got to get up and over, but you can tell she likes this. This is like home for her now. Every time you see that sign.
107.35 is the course record set last year by Simberi Teferi. 106.30 right now, Hellen Obiri. Her mark as she makes her way to the finish line here in Central Park.
This is the 8th half marathon of Hellen Obiri's career. She's won 5 of the 7 so far, looking to make it number 6. And the other 2 that she didn't win, she ran 64:22 and 64:51, so really fast. Today, she's looking to get the best of both worlds, a fast time and the victory.
Well, she knows the time is close. Yes. 200 meters to go. It looks like she's going to get that time, but it's going to be tight.
When Hellen Obiri goes to the arms, the race is over.
And those arms in full swing as she makes her way here to the finish line. Hellen Obiri, the 2-time Olympic and 7-time World Championship medalist, is now your United Airlines NYC Half champion, setting a new event record in the process. Unbelievable. What a dominating performance today by Hellen Obiri.
107.35 was the event record from last year. It looks like she was about 12 seconds roughly in front of that. Awesome day for her.
Hellen Obiri, the winner on the women's side. Who's going to finish first on the men's side? The answer to that question coming up in just a bit. There's Simberi Teferi's last year's winner, finishing second here today.
Giving thanks, as she always does, after she ran very well. You know, she came into this half marathon with a 1:11, actually, was her tune-up, and that is just not her. You can tell that she's making her way. So you can see, I'm sure she's elated to see a fast time, a great finish, and she's back. But here, little Tanya, 7 years old with mom. It's got to be exciting for her.
Hellen Obiri back to her winning ways and also back with her family, so this is a special moment.
And Cheptegei out front all alone. Wow.
Yeah, it's Kip Limo.
Oh, excuse me, Kip Limo. Yes, thanks, Chris.
No worries. And it shouldn't come as a shock to us that the 2 athletes coming into this race with the strongest cross-country pedigree are the ones who are looking like they might get the victories.
Yeah, Cheptegei back quite a bit. I mean, he's really poured it on here in the last couple miles, and you could see that. I would say probably 3 miles back, I saw him, and it was almost like he was just having that inner dialogue, and you know, thinking, should I go now? Should I wait? And he really has put on a lot of distance between those 2.
Kip Limo, the half marathon world record holder, no stranger to having success on this stage, and he is having all kinds of that this morning here at the United Airlines NYC Half, just cruising through Central Park. And don't let the blue skies and sunshine fool you, friends. It's cold here this morning. But Jacob Kiplimo from Uganda, the 22-year-old, warming things up and making it look real easy here this morning.
The big deciding move that kind of broke open this race for Kip Limo was a 4:19 12th mile.
Woo! Yeah, he was moving. You know, he said the hills will be good for him. He loves cross country. He's very strong. And, you know, you can tell that he likes that. And he was using the hills to really, not only the uphill, but he was using those downhills to get back into that stride. But look at how great he looks. So calm, so collected. His arm carriage is much different than we see with Hellen Obiri, but he is using them. You know, everyone needs, a lot of people wonder, do the arms really help you run? Well, they definitely help you propel yourself forward, and he's going to it.
Kiplimo became the youngest Olympian ever from Uganda when he competed at the Rio 2016 Olympics at age 15. Here he is now 7 years later at age 22, about to win the United Airlines NYC Half.
That form looks so smooth right here in the final stages of the race.
So she beat the course record by 14 seconds, did Hellen Obiri.
It's a good chunk of time to take off of already a really fast record.
And on a cold and windy day, you know, she was up in the lead from pretty much the very beginning. So she had the brunt of that wind. And so, yeah, she ran really well. I think on a fast course, whoo, she would have been closer to 65, 66.
And that's a good sign for Hellen Obiri as she tries to make the decision of whether or not she will be running a spring marathon.
All eyes right now on the 22-year-old Ugandan Jacob Kiplimo, who has looked nothing short of dominant here this morning.
Yeah, Kiplimo's a guy who hasn't run a marathon yet, but it does sort of give you if you're a diehard running fan, the questions in your head do start to pop up. And when you run 57 minutes for the half marathon, what could that athlete do over the full marathon distance? And so someday we'll get our answer, but today it's just another day where Kiplimo is underscoring the fact that he is a half marathon animal and just a strong runner over the 13.1.
Less than 0.2 of a mile to go as he meanders his way through the streets here of Central Park.
Molly Huddle's moved her way up. We are excited to see that she is getting closer to that 5th place.
You are looking live at the men's field. On the left here, Jacob Kiplimo, the 22-year-old Ugandan, about to be the United Airlines NYC Half champion, who has really separated himself from the rest of the field. On the right, the American, Molly Huddle, just crossing the finish line here in Central Park. A strong showing from Molly here today, Carrie.
Strong showing right there, Dakota Lindworm, but also Des Linden placing 4th today. She's getting ready for the Boston Marathon, and she was kind of talking down this race, thinking she was going to have to, you know, settle a little bit. But yeah, as we just watch here,
Jacob Kiplimo, your winner on the men's side, the United Airlines half marathon champion. He's a half marathon world record holder, and he sure made it look easy here today, Chris.
Yeah, under the cold conditions, he was one of those guys when he looked at the starting line, he was out of his element, but today persevered and gritted his way all the way to victory, made a big move in the 12th mile to break one of the most accomplished runners in the world in Joshua Cheptegei. But it's once again Jacob Kiplimo victorious here on the streets of New York.
One more look as he crossed the finish line. Doesn't even look like he's out of breath, friends. Just ran 13.1 miles like it was nothing.
Well, the windup was real today, right? I mean, as we see Cheptegei, but Kiplimo just put the pressure on every single lap, every single mile, and he really looked smooth. You know, the time for him does not indicate what a superstar he is, but the way that he raced definitely did.
That's what they call the squeeze, when you're just squeezing the pace.
Jacob Kiplimo, the 22-year-old from Uganda, the United Airlines NYC Half men's champion. What a day it's been here, Mike and Tony. We'll send it back to you in the studio. Take a look at the men's finishers. And boy, what a gap between Kiplimo and Cheptegei.
Yeah, so we did end up seeing a Uganda 1-2 with Kiplimo and Cheptegei going as your first and second place finishers. Zuhair Talbi, who held on for third place in 62.18. Another strong race for him. And Ben True was your top American on the day, 62.57. Again, a good sign for him heading as he gets ready for the Boston Marathon in just a month.
And it looks like those official results have our top American on the women's side is 5th place Des Linden, Dakota Lindworm, and Molly Huddle going 5, 6, and 7.
5 Americans in the top 10.
It's a good day.
And here's our men's champion, Jacob Kiplimo. And at the end of the day, it is a friendly competition. These 3 gentlemen all smiles here at the finish line.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, guts and glory to get to the finish line. But really, at the end of the day, I think we see most of these competitors, you know, excited to see that they all ran hard. They pushed each other to the best that they could today, and super fun. It was a great race.
The best part about finishing in the top 3 is you get an extra layer when you get your country's flag on.
That's right.
And on a day like today, that extra layer goes a long way. We can tell you that. Sam Ryan's going to catch up with our champion here in just a moment. You're watching continuing coverage of the United Airlines NYC Half.
Why do we run? We run to create a healthier, more active New York City. We run to build communities and to inspire runners of all ages and abilities to be active for life. We run to make a lasting impact. We run to champion inclusivity and diversity. We run to help and inspire people through running. We run stronger together. Join us at nyrr.org/impact.
Team for Kids raise funds for New York Roadrunners free youth and community programs and events. Since 2002, CFK runners have raised over $100 million to help kids like me participate in programs like Rising New York Roadrunners. Join us in celebrating this milestone and learn about how you can help NYRR create healthier and more active communities as we rise toward our next 100 million.
Here's a look at the top finishers on the women's side. Helen O'Beary setting a new event record here today, breaking Sinberi Teferi's mark set last year by 14 seconds. Sam Ryan is with Helen here at the finish line in Central Park. Sam.
Yeah, Ryan and Helen, this was your New York City half debut and an event record today by 14 seconds. How did you do it, especially with the wind? You were telling me it was very windy out there.
First of all, I'm so grateful to have won this race. It's my first half marathon in the U.S. So I think there's a lot of windy, but I tried to push myself. But after 15K, I decided maybe can I make a move, and so that I tried to go and then push the base. So I wanted at least to run like sub 70 because it's a hard course and there's a lot of hill. So I'm happy to have won this race today.
You talk about the 15K, and that's where we saw you making your move. And then when you came into the park, what is your mindset as you're coming down here in the park? And you know the time, and you know that you have the lead. So what's going through your mind at that point?
Oh, what was going on my mind? It's all about winning, not about the time, because it's a hard course. And all we wanted for today, it's a win. Yeah.
You got it. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Let's send it back to you guys.
Helen O'Beary, the pride of Kenya, winning her half marathon debut here at the United Airlines NYC Half, and doing so with a new event record. On the men's side, Jacob Kiplimo, your winner, the second place finisher, his fellow countryman Joshua Cheptegei.
Yeah, and as I look at these results, I'm also really impressed with Ben True. I mean, after a rough go he had last fall, having to withdraw from this race, it's a good step forward for him to be the top American and get ready for Boston.
The 11th time Kiplimo and Cheptegei have participated in the same event. Today marks the second time they finished first and second. As the runners make their way through an empty Times Square, one of the cool scenes and settings here of the United Airlines NYC Half. How about the champ on the men's side? Sam Ryan caught up with Jacob. She's with him right now.
Yeah, with Jacob right now. I was talking to you at the start before the race, and Tell me what you were feeling before the race, because to me you seemed a little nervous. Were you nervous heading into this?
So actually, I think, as I've said before I started the race, that I'm going maybe to try my level best, because just I'm very excited to win this race. You know, this is my first half marathon. From there, I'm so I'm happy.
First here, and first not only in New York City, but in the United States. What did you think of the race?
I think actually to me the race was good, because from the start to the finishing, because even though it was somehow a little bit cold, but I did my best.
Yeah, you did your best, and you did well. You finished first. You know, we talked about the world, the cross-country championships, and a little bit earlier in Australia. How did that help you today?
I think actually it helped me a lot, because I was preparing almost the last 2 months, because I was doing like 2 trainings, because I was preparing for cross country, and then plus now this one in half marathon. I think they have helped me a lot, because it was a good program. Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations to you, Jacob.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Let's send it back to you guys.
Jacob Kiplimo taking home today's top prize, $20,000. That goes to the men's and women's winner, $10,000 for second place. And if you're doing the math, Carrie and Chris, the winner gets about $1,500 per mile. That's good work if you can get it.
It's a lot of work, though, that goes into this one day. Think of that, hundreds of miles a week for some, 120, 130 miles a week.
So if you happen to be at the same restaurant as Jacob Kiplimo tonight, dinner's on him.
Yeah. But what a great place to start your U.S. running, career for him.
Yeah.
He's never raced here on the streets of the U.S. and to come here and, you've said it all along. It's so cool to have this quiet part of Times Square be, open for just the runners. I mean, Chris, you live here. That's kind of unheard of.
That's rarely the case. Yeah, I wonder if now they're going to go into other races being like, all right, so where are the lights like Times Square? What's the Times Square of, wherever they might end up being? But yeah, no, this is one of the best races in the country, and days like this and performances like we've seen at the top end of this of both the men's and women's races show that.
It's a live look at Times Square. We're going to send it back down to the finish line here in Central Park, and Sam Ryan. Sam.
Yeah, and I'm with the new CEO of the New York Roadrunners, Rob Simmelcare. Congratulations to you. And, since you took over in November, how has it been going? How much fun are you having?
Oh, it's a dream job. It's one of the best jobs in New York City, in my opinion. We've got an incredible community, an incredible set of runners, of course, an amazing staff, and there's just so much passion around running, Sam. So many people started running during the pandemic, and we're seeing that at all of our races week in and week out. Every race is sold out. People are just dying to get out and join us on these races, so it's been phenomenal, and today's been a really great day so far.
How does an event like this, when you look at 13.1 miles, when people see 26.2, that just seems too daunting. I know you're a marathon runner. You've run a couple of the New York City marathons, but that seems like just a tough challenge for many. But 13.1, people can train for that. What does this event do for that to try to welcome people in?
I think it's an incredibly accessible distance for people who want to try to accomplish something big. But, it can be maybe a step on the way to the marathon, or maybe it's the longest run someone ever does, and that's okay. I always say a half marathon, it's a half marathon, but it's a whole lot of training, it's a whole lot of running, it's a whole lot of fun. So I think it's really a great distance for people, and I'm thrilled to see a lot of first-time finishers of the 25,000, a lot of first-time half marathoners coming across today.
We look at the field, you talk about 25,000 finishers. Oh, we see Olympians here, we see world record holders, and then you see your neighbors running. How do you send that message to everyone?
I think that's one of the best things about our sport, is that those recreational runners are running the exact same course as the pros we just saw finish, and they can compare their experience. They can feel that they conquered those same elements, that same course, and they can relate their time to the time of the times of the best runners out there. So, I've got the United Airlines New York City Half app on my phone. I've got all the people I know running in there. I can track them all, see where they are on the course. So if you got people out there are running, you can follow along, see how they're doing, and it's just a great experience for everybody where they are, no matter where they are in the pack.
I'm going to speak for you right now because I know the worst part of your job right now is that we're both standing here and we're not running. We can't run these races now. How much does that hurt you?
Sam, you're so right. I mean, at the start this morning, I was dying to run. I've got my running shoes on right now, and I was running in place. I was doing jumping jacks. I wanted to jump in a corral and run, but I know I needed to be here to greet the professionals, and I knew I couldn't beat them here on my feet, so I had to jump in a police escort car so I could get here before they did. But yes, I do run a lot of our races. I'll run the 5Ks and the 10Ks, but for the half marathons, I really want to be here for the winners, so I just had to, I'll take a run later. When this is done, I'll take a run in the park. Maybe I'll see you there.
Thank you so much, and so much more to come in 2023. Guys, let's send it back to you.
All right, Sam, thanks. What a day it's been here at the United Airlines NYC Half. 4 champions crowned in the professional fields, starting with the men's wheelchair, and what a race it was today, Chris.
Yeah, both wheelchair races were really thrilling. We saw kind of the favorites really shine today. And so on both sides, we saw Susanna Scaroni really, but on the men's side first, Jetson Platt got out to an early lead over Daniel Romanchuk and held on, really pressed forward and came away with his first ever NYC half title and his first ever half marathon.
Yeah, he is new to the streets here, but he loved it. He was so excited to be here. Said loves training in Central Park, and you could see it in his racing today. He just kind of took over, and really exciting day for him here. Jetson Platt, 48.28.
Daniel Romanchuk right behind him, 53.07.
6 Americans in the top 8. A strong showing for the red, white, and blue here this morning. On the women's side, Susanna Scaroni was the story, Carrie.
Yeah, she went for it right away. You could see that she was just excited to be back here. She's had such success on the streets of New York, whether it's the 10K on up to the marathon. But today she finally got that title here that she wanted last year before COVID took over for her and she couldn't come in a race. So for her to break the tape here at the United Airlines NYC Half, that's a big thing on her resume. This is her second title, actually. She won here in 2017, so she knows how to race here and she loves it. Look at that, 55.47. It was a pretty tight race. Manuela Schar, 55.56 right behind her. And then the debutante, Catherine de Brunner, she came here and had a great finish too in third.
So that's the look at the professional women on the wheelchair side. How about the professional women? We saw a record-setting performance today here by Helen Obiri.
Yeah, very different race than the men. Helen Obiri took it out with our defending champion from last year, Teferi, right there on her heels. But, it was almost like she just kept pushing every single mile to get a little bit more distance in between them. And even though Teferi had a great race, it was all Helen Obiri here. Look at her attack those hills. She was not afraid of the course. She said the wind was the hard part for her today, and it definitely was cold and windy out here, but she fired it up and she was definitely on a pace to run well, and she set that new event record. Looking great.
By 14 seconds, the new event record here at the United Airlines NYC Half, Chris.
Helen Obiri getting back to her winning ways in New York City is a good thing for the sport, and being greeted right there by her family is awesome to see, especially because last year at the New York City Marathon she was away from them for quite a bit of time, but the family's reunited and Helen Obiri is crushing. So things are well in the Helen Obiri world.
Yeah.
The Americans' Des Linden leading the pack there at number 5. Molly Huddle finishing in 7th. A strong showing for Molly in her return to this race.
Yeah, she's got to be pleased with that. I mean, this was a hard course. The last race that she ran was in Houston, which is flat and fast. So Molly is definitely on her way back, but she's excited and happy to be here. A big shout out to Gravdal there in third. She was third here last year, and she comes here and she always performs. And so got to give it up to the Norwegian in the field today too.
And on the men's side, we talked so much about the battle of the Ugandans, Jacob Kiplimo and Joshua Cheptegei, and they finished first and second today, Chris.
This was thrilling right from the start because the whole big pack of men kind of bided their time, and it was Chris Thompson who said, I'm going to get a little bit of TV time and take it out hard. So we saw him as your early leader, but eventually was reeled in by the rest of the pack. And then what we got to see after that was just Kiplimo Cheptegei and the likes of Zuhair Talbi pressing on and really making this a true race. It's not a day for world records, but Kiplimo and Cheptegei going head-to-head is always thrilling, and today it was Kiplimo's day as he cruised past Times Square and pressed on, threw down a 4:19 mile towards the end of the race, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. And then that form at the end is just beautiful as he crosses the finish line for the win in his first ever half marathon on U.S. soil.
Not a bad debut, to say the least, as we check out the results on the men's side.
Yeah, big shout out to Ben True. He won here before, and now he's back in 4th position. He wasn't able to run the marathon last fall because of some illness, but he's back. And also Edward Cheserek in a top 5 finish again. He was last year, he was 2nd here. So here coming in today in 5th, that's a great day for him too.
I think the thing to learn from this one is that if it's cold and Ben True's in the race, then he's going to be the top American.
Ben True finishing in 4th. And as we said, a cold day, 30 degrees at the start line in Brooklyn's Prospect Park, but still plenty of good racing here today. Chris, how about some final thoughts?
Yeah, it was great racing that we were treated to with some of the best runners in the world. And so, again, when the weather doesn't cooperate and isn't perfect, what you want to see is some really nice racing that goes all the way to the final stages of the race. When you see those kicks on both sides, where it was Hellen Obiri going to the arms and crushing Sinberi Teferi in the late stages of the race, and on the men's side, Kiplimo versus Cheptegei lived up to the hype.
Well, I think it's awesome because we know a lot of these athletes are just getting ready for their spring marathon, so we're going to see a lot of marathons. But now seeing all these athletes come in, I mean, it's fun to talk about the people that break the tape,
sure,
but this is where we would be now. So I'm excited to see these guys finish too.
Well, we were excited to see it all unfold here this morning. Chris and Carrie, thanks so much for being with us. It's been a fun day once again at the United Airlines NYC Half, an inspiring day of racing here in New York City. It's been our pleasure covering the race for you. We saw impressive showings by Jacob Kiplimo, Hellen Obiri, and in the wheelchair races, Yetzi Platt and Susanna Scaroni, the American, doing big things here during the 13.1 mile course. It's been our pleasure bringing it to all of our viewers from all across the world. Thank you so much for being with us. For Carrie Tullifson, Chris Chavez, Sam Ryan, Brittany Bell, and our entire team here, I'm Ryan Field. Thank you so much for watching. Make it a great Sunday, friends.